Hello, church family. My name is Stephen Helm, Director of Christian Education at Christ Our Redeemer Lutheran Church, and you're watching Devo with SteveO. Well, welcome once again to my home. I'm down here in sunny Florida, so if it's cold where you are, come on in, pull up a seat, and warm yourself. Now, last time on my previous devotion, I talked about Christmas coming to an end and how remarkable it is that every year, at the end of the year, we celebrate Jesus. All across the world, lights are put up and the celebration continues to be one of hope and peace. And how wonderful that is, but maybe, just maybe, our lives can change for the better if we don't just celebrate such a season and such a time at the end of the year, but that we carry Jesus with us to the beginning of the year as well. Well, here in America, the beginning of this year has already felt long and difficult, and perhaps the joy of Christmas seems far behind us. So what better time than once again to reflect on that peace and that joy and to bring it back into our hearts and in front of us and into our minds once again. And so I've been doing that by reflecting on a poem that I think you'll find familiar. Let me start by reading just a piece of it to you. Yet in the dark street shineth the everlasting light. The hopes and fears of all the years are met in thee tonight. Maybe you've heard this. It's a popular Christmas hymn, O Little Town of Bethlehem. It was written by Pastor Philip Brooks, who penned this hymn in 1868, just a couple years at the end of the American Civil War. And after having just previously been to Bethlehem himself, he wrote these lyrics and wrote this hymn for a Sunday school class at his church in Philadelphia. And I can just imagine Pastor Brooks having come back from his trip to the Holy Land and probably walking the streets of Bethlehem at night, seeing the dark streets himself in person, and then seeing the light shining in the darkness, overcoming the darkness. Maybe it's a physical light, but certainly it was a spiritual one. And the light of Christ was what he saw and what he brought back with him to his home and to his church in Philadelphia, where he shared these words in this hymn with his community. The hopes and fears of all the years, the dark streets. This image wasn't just something seen 2,000 years ago in Bethlehem or 150 years ago in the streets of Philadelphia, but the dark streets and the fears are all too familiar to us today. But in those dark streets shines an everlasting light. The hopes and fears of all the years are met in Jesus tonight. You see, Jesus met the moment. Being born in Bethlehem, he knew of all the hope that humanity had. He knew of every fear that worried their minds and troubled their souls. He didn't ignore them, he didn't dismiss them, he didn't downplay them or excuse them. He rose to the occasion, he met the moment, and he filled us with hope and renewed us with forgiveness, grace, and victory that we fight for on our own, but we can never achieve. But yet we have been gifted through Jesus. And so I want to do something with you as we close this devotion with a prayer. I'm going to turn this hymn into our prayer. And what I've done before in devotions such as this one, where I've said, when you're reading scripture and you come across an I or a you, replace that with your name so that that verse can really speak to you, can encourage you, can challenge you directly. Instead of that, we're going to put not just your name, but your community, your town, your home. So when I say, oh, little town of Bethlehem, what I mean is a little town in Tampa Bay, a little town in Philadelphia, a little town in Berlin, a little town wherever you are, wherever you live. Put your name down there. Put your city's name there. A little town of what you call home. How still we see thee lie. Above thy deep and dreamless sleep, the silent stars go by. Yet in the dark street shineth the everlasting light. Your hopes and your fears of all the years are met in Jesus tonight. And in today and in every day, may the light and the peace of God be with you always.